So happy today to be talking about networking because I think networking keeps changing. And today, our guest is Steve Spiro. And not only does Steve have 5,100 followers on LinkedIn, he's a consultant, a motivational speaker, but a professional networker. And today, he's going to tell us how a shy kid from the Bronx became this master networker with his own business and speaking engagements and just bringing networking to a whole new level. So welcome, Steve. I'm so happy to have you.
Yeah, it's great to be here. I'm excited. Yeah.
So without any further ado, how does a shy kid from the Bronx become a master networker?
Oh man, I don't know how many hours we have of I can tell you my story, but I actually started out my first company right out of college in advertising. I think I chose graphic design because it was going to be an opportunity for me to be in front of at the time it was just turning into computers, so in front of a inanimate object and not really dealing with people. And I guess as I started to realize, as my career grew, I realized, you know what, I probably have to deal with people, and wound up getting a martial arts background that gave me some confidence in that arena. So certainly I could, hit you, but to talk with you, that'd be a little bit different story. And I was very blessed because several years back, I was introduced to a group of entrepreneurs who were a really good friend they knew in the advertising world. And that has been a life-changing experience. One of the guys became sort of a mentor to me and put me on a path of, I guess you would say, self-development. Do a lot of reading. I'm big into Audible books now, and so I've grown. The Steve Spiro that you may have known as a shy kid from the Bronx who got picked on, to the guy that I am today is night and day, and I'm still growing. I mean, I believe that you're either a tomato that's ripening or a tomato that's rotting, and I always want to continue to grow and never stay static. It's been great, and I think what his name is Ed, but what Ed kind of put me on is life doesn't have to be inside of a box. You can get out, you can talk with people, and I just started doing it. And the more I started to do it, the more I realized, it's my philosophy that, and I've learned this, but half the world is waiting for the other half of the world to say hello. And
I say that to my daughter all the time.
Yeah.
Connecticut is different than the Midwest, right?
Oh, big time.
In Connecticut, I really believe it. There's a whole bunch of people out there just waiting for you to introduce yourself. In the Midwest, they're just brought up differently.
Totally. Like, hey, Midwest, South, all of them.
Totally different. You'll meet your next best friend crossing the street,
It's crazy.
But here, I do believe that it's half the world is just waiting. And I think in certain parts of the country, like here, it's more than half of the world, right?
Yeah. We live in such a busy society. I think people are, especially here in the Northeast, we are kind of guarded. But I think when you break that barrier, people just love talking.
People want to know you. Most people, they want to know other people. They want more people in their lives to grow their business or friendships, whatever, to expand their network. I love that. One thing that you said that stood out, Steve, was that you focus on building your confidence first. So I want to talk about that because today is really about, I want to get into different ways of networking and how millennials network versus us old school Gen Xers, right? And I want to talk about that a little bit too. But first, let's kind of talk about how do you break through the barrier of, I don't want to do this crap. Because there's a lot of business owners out there. They love what they do. They love people. But the idea of networking is like pulling their toenails out, right?
I know. It's so true. And I've been there. For me, I think, it's multiple things. It's not a one, it's not a magic pill. I think first knowing that, people do like to speak once you break that barrier is helpful. But I think, you're right. You have to build confidence, and I think being on a self-development path has helped me. I read all sorts of books, I read at least once, if not twice, the book called How to Have Power and Confidence Dealing with People. And there's a book called The Friendship Factor and Referral of a Lifetime. And I could list a host of books that I've read that all sort of say the same thing, which is you know, you're obviously, if you just open your mouth and say something, people start talking. And it's interesting, but I kind of look at, and this may sound a little weird, and hopefully bear with me through this whole part of this, but I kind of look at talking to people as petting a dog. Okay, so bear with me on this one. Yeah.
Okay, my dog's ears are all perked up right now.
You get three reactions when you go to pet a dog, right? Either the dog kind of loves it, licks your hand, wags his tail, or he sort of ignores you and sort of walks away, or he growls and bites or wants to bite, right? And you know, people have that kind of reaction. I would say most people though are the wag the tail kind of reaction. But it's not, you know, it wasn't me. The dog, you know, doesn't know me. You know, I just talk. And it's interesting when you just say something, you know, it could be anything. I just, you know, hey, nice day. Or, you know, you could be a little bold and talk about the crazy politics going on here, but that'll get into an interesting conversation.
Well, that's a danger zone. I sat at lunch with somebody a couple weeks ago that said, I'm afraid to ask a question anymore because if they say they like Trump, I don't want to finish a conversation. And I'm like, what? So you're going to end business because they like Trump? I'm like, that almost sounds ridiculous. And then we got into this heated conversation about politics. Next week we're doing, on the 23rd, I have the most opinionated people talking about politics, Trump and Hillary Clinton, and what that means for small business. I don't really expect to get a word in edgewise.
That's fine.
But one thing that I did notice, one thing that I've been observing, and I don't know if you know this, but I have a focus group of millennials that I keep and I pull and I test, and because I don't know, I can't pretend to be a millennial and put myself in their shoes, right? So I think it's important that we have these different generational groups that we can pull on. And what's really interesting, what you said about talking about anything, right? Like how to build friends and influence people, and talking about books that you read and things like that. That's very Generation X, actually. And today, with the younger generation, it's okay to start off by talking about your passion and about what you love.
Sure.
And if that's work, then that's work. And that's really highly respected, which is something we were always told not to do, right? You walk into a networking situation, you're like, hey, Steve, those are great shoes. Did you get those in Italy, right? Or whatever the conversation goes. You'd never say, hey, Steve, what do you do? Yeah. And let me tell you about my business. And I think that's something that we're hearing that's changing a little as our population is growing.
I think that's a good point, and I think when I am in networking situations, and by the way, the world is my networking event. I just talk to people anywhere, and it never starts with, you know, something that's kind of, if you will, salesy or pitchy. It's just a conversation, you know. I love the, you know, something situational, environmental as a conversation starter, and then, you know, I might go into where you're from, you're from the area, and then maybe eventually what do you do, but it's just very conversational, and I think but you're right, the millennial,
it's authentic, which I love, and I think that talks to every generation. Right.
Agreed. The challenge with the millennials right now is, and I have a passion to really to speaking engagements with millennials as well as the boomers, because there's a deficiency. The millennials are really good with social media, being in front of having this barrier here, right? This technology barrier, but when it comes to face-to-face, there's a bit of a deficiency in creating real relationships and developing, you know, this kind of, you know, face-to-face interaction. So it's kind of sad, but I think that, you know, the millennials that will stand out, that will excel in the business world or relationally, will be able to develop those skills, you know, and not hide behind technology.
Right. Yeah. I agree. You know, and it's interesting. We'll get into the millennials after, but Steve, what I really want to talk about with you is because you mastered this. There are a lot of people that it is so painful to go to a networking event. So a couple of things that I pulled aside first is, one, build your confidence. One thing that you like to talk about. With my teams, I used to always teach my teams to read the USA Today before they went, because the USA Today is like the easiest reading material ever. But everyone can talk about almost everything that's in those pages, right?
Oh, yeah, sure.
It's really easy to talk about topical current events. But tell me, how did you start? What was the first type of event that you went to, and how did you dip your toe in? And what would you suggest for others, I guess?
You know, honestly, and I know there's good and bad on this, but I've had very good experience with BNI. It's a very structured networking once a week. I encourage people to go visit, you know, things of that. And I know there's others, and I know you have stuff that you guys do, and you know, when I find that formal networking, especially in the BNI type, is good because you find people that don't know where to start, you know, what to say, and it's structured. There's a real, you know, it starts at 8:30, 7:30 a.m. or 7:15. It's done at 8:30, and that was my first sort of formal experience of that. And you know, there's some mingling before, mingling after, and you know, I think in the beginning, I think I got there exactly when it started, and in the beginning, I ended when it ended. I left when it ended, and I didn't do the mingling. And then eventually I started to, you know, as you get to know people, you do some mingling. That was my first kind of experience. And then, you know, I'll go anywhere, and, you know, when there's good events to go to and talk with people. Yeah.
You know, I've heard BNI is great for beginners, and if nobody's been to a BNI, it's so nicely structured, and because you have to go so often, by your fourth or fifth meeting, you really do have some accountability to each other and the members there. It's almost, I don't want to say forced networking, and I'm a big fan of BNI. I think everybody's got to find, every business has a networking tool or event that's right for them. So if BNI doesn't fit, then find something else. But there's some other great tools out there. I have
like golf networking.
Yeah, like networking golf. And then, you know, and I also think there's people out there that never ever network in person.
Yeah.
I would say, well, we're in 25 states with Small Business USA. Mm-hmm. So the majority of the people that are members, I've never met them in person.
That's great.
Pretty amazing. And it's all been through LinkedIn and connecting. But it's still figuring out how do you keep it authentic and real, right?
That's right.
Hey, yeah. You know, you had mentioned Toastmasters, and that question came up. Right, you did mention that you went to Toastmasters.
I don't know if I've ever been. I've heard great things about it, but I haven't been to one.
But I think that's also a great way to build your confidence, right?
Oh yeah.
Get yourself speaking in public.
Yeah.
So, how do you network? Tell us, like, what is your networking strategy right now? I mean, you have quite a following. You've built a speaking business, a personal coaching business. Yeah. You build your day job.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally not networking. What do you do?
So I just want to, if you don't mind, back up just for a minute on the conversation part of networking, and this can transcend in person, or, you know, like you and I had met through LinkedIn and had a really good phone conversation. You know, I think the key to networking in general is, you can go and read USA Today, or you could do a lot of reading and have a lot in your brain to share with people. But I find the best way to network and build relationships is to talk about what a person's favorite topic is. Do you know what that is? Themselves.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you ask questions. You say, and people love talking about themselves. Their favorite word too. What is it? Their name, right? You get to know their name. You mention their name, and you know, I know it sounds maybe a little bit trite, whatever, but it's stuff is relevant. People love it, and so that's an important factor. What I believe when you go, you know, if you're like concerned, okay, well, what do I talk about? Find out about the person. I have a genuine desire when I talk and meet with people to learn about them, right? And not just sort of, I don't want to pitch. Matter of fact, my objective is to do very, very little talking about me and what I do. Seriously, I want to know about them. My objective when I am at a networking event is to you know, maybe make a connection, get a business card, you know, give them mine, obviously, and then connect later and see if there's a way we can help each other. Again, my thought is, how can I help you? Not what can I get from you, but how can I help you? How can I be of service to you? And so my strategy in general, you know, I kind of, and I speak about this, is the three-legged stool of networking. I kind of made this up, but it is true, and it's sort of the three we've talked about now, which is traditional networking. But most people are not really good at just one, let alone three, and that is how to really work the room. How do you leverage, you know, the time or maybe money, because some of these events could be quite a lot of money leverage that? And my objective is to meet as many people as possible. Get their information, make a good impression. Again, I'm not pitching myself. I figured we could talk about each other in more detail down the line when we reconnect offline, right? But just try to get as many cards as I can and just make some connections. So that's one aspect. And then the follow-up and follow-through is so lacking in a lot of networking traditionally.
I want to go after that follow-up piece, Steve, because I think it's really important. But before we do that, I think different thoughts. There's different trains of thought, and I think it's about being authentic in who you are. I will tell you to date, the very, very best networking event I ever went to was at this little restaurant in Middletown in 2009, and 3 of us showed up.
Oh, wow.
It was absolutely the best. It still fuels my business today.
That's great.
Other people we had time to have a glass of wine together and get to really know each other. And I will tell you, if I had to go back in time and somebody told me I had to pay $500 to go to that event with those 3 people, I would gladly have paid it. So I always tell people, go in there, and if you get lost in a conversation, if somebody really inspires you to listen, if you meet 3 people and there's 100 people in the room, don't ever try to, there are some people, I'm not one of them. There's some people that can walk through a crowd of 100 people and meet 60 of them and make an amazing impression. And I think we have to know who we are authentically. And if I go in and I meet 10 people or 5 people and make a great impression, I'm just as happy with myself. But you have to know who you are and what's comfortable. And what you said is even more important, is that follow-up. Whether you meet 5 or 50, what does that follow-up look like? So I want to hear what you're doing for the follow-up. And I just want to quote Armstrong Williams, because Armstrong Williams said, networking is an essential part of building wealth. And I believe, and I want you to weigh in on this, I believe it's not the initial networking, it's what you do after you meet someone that is the essential part of building wealth. And wealth in friendships, in business, in life, everything. But go ahead.
I mean, you I think we touched on this, and I think you wrote it in the blurb, right? Which is one of my favorite quotes, which is, your network is in direct proportion to your net worth, right? So your network should mean a lot to you. But again, if you have, then this is a challenge with a lot of the millennials, where they may have a very large social media network, but they're not really interacting with people. And it happens all the time. I see on LinkedIn. I'm big on LinkedIn, obviously. People connect with you, and then there's no follow-up whatsoever. Oh, great. Okay, now my ego is great. I have 682 connections. So what? What does that do?
Right.
So as a rule of thumb, what I do is if I meet somebody in a traditional networking event, or the other leg of my stool, which being the untraditional networking, I call it, which is just meeting people as you live life. I always try to follow up with either a text right away. It was great meeting you. Let's stay in touch. I look to see if I could connect with them on LinkedIn. So there's a follow up, from that. And if we do connect on LinkedIn, I'll send a message. I like what LinkedIn does, which is it prompts you when people either change jobs or have anniversaries. I like sending those messages. However, what I don't do is just send the canned ones. I customize it, and I'll say, hey, let's have a conversation. And I don't remember how ours got prompted, but it might have been as one of those type of things. It's possible you reached out and said, hey, congrats on your role or whatever it was. And I said, thanks. Let's connect. Let's have a conversation. And if we have had conversation before, let's catch up. Let's talk again. And so I'm constantly having conversations, either by phone or, maybe over coffee with people, just to kind of see what they're up to. Is there any synergy? Because again, having 5,100 connections is great, but what are you doing with it, right? And so I think the follow-up part is key. And I love, I'm an advocate. I don't get paid for it. As a matter of fact, I pay the money for the subscription, but I'm an advocate because I think LinkedIn has some good things that you could use, tools. I also like to send out messages regularly. So my network is very much understand kind of my core values and what I bring to the table, because what I'm sending out is not salesy stuff, but it's stuff that I think will enhance their life and kind of represents who and what I'm about. And like you said earlier, my passions.
You know, I always challenge our members to just be a little strategic about that follow-up, because I think what's really important, and I bet you can think of 5 people that if you went through your Rolodex, or that's dating myself.
What is that?
If you went through your phone and your contacts or your LinkedIn profile, 5 people that you could say, oh, I cannot believe I didn't keep in touch with them.
Right.
And so I always challenge, whether you use a tool like refer.com or whatever your strategy is, make sure that you put something in your calendar, put something in your strategy that those people that you really connect with, that you really find value in your relationship. And it doesn't have to be two-way, right? We always are so worried about if I do this, are they going to repay me? And oh, I've never gotten a referral from this person, so I'm not going to keep in touch with them. I have lots of people in my sphere of influence that just fill and feed me on different levels. But you have to be consistent with following up with them too, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I don't think you can just like once a year say, oh, happy anniversary. And I know that you don't do this, Steve, but what do you use any tools to keep in track and pay attention to who you're connecting with and how you're keeping in touch?
Yeah, I use the calendar reminders a lot.
Yeah.
And I'll advance them, maybe once every 3 months, every 6 months, every year, and once a year, just to make sure, that certain people that I really felt that there was a good connection, I don't want to miss specifically. Because again, not everyone in my network, I'm not exaggerating. There's literally 12,000 connections, contacts on my phone. I'm serious. And the only reason I know that is because when I had to change my Verizon phone, my iPhone at Verizon, they had to say, you have that many contacts, these are not duplicates. And then maybe a few duplicates, but yeah, I use technology. I know some people are big advocates on Constant Contact and other tools. I'm not big on that per se. It just doesn't mean I don't like it or not, and they'll find it valuable. But I like the traditional, put in your calendar, remind yourself, and then just reach out somehow.
Yeah, I think that's worth mentioning. Constant Contact is not personal. That's not how you build a relationship.
I agree.
It's got to be personal. It's got to be me checking in on Steve about his new job. So we have this, we teach this at Small Business USA, that you could have about 20 people who are in your center of influence that you reach out to on a monthly basis.
Sure.
Sometimes if you want to reach out to them bi-monthly, then that makes sense. But there should be 20 people that you really nurture those relationships, because your business is going to grow through 20 people. They're going to get to know you. You're going to get to know them. I think it's really, I don't know how you manage 12,000, right? That's just an extraordinary number.
Yeah, it is.
So and you are exceptional, and that's why you are in the business of networking, because you have that gift. But how do you what does every day look like for you when it comes to networking, Steve? Give us some insights so we can get better at this.
Well, I do. I think I'd say 2 are the 2 which leads to 3 are my sort of day-to-day go-tos, right? So I'm on LinkedIn regularly. I'm sending out messages regularly on LinkedIn. Like I said, anniversary jobs. So if somebody, likes my, one of my posts, I might reach out to them. So yeah, I'm posting often LinkedIn. At one point, I was doing every day. I've gotten a little bit away from that. I want to start getting back to that once things settle for me a little bit here. But it's really something I think you have to do on purpose and do it regularly.
I love that, on purpose.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
On purpose, not by accident, not when you think of it. Plan time. I love that. I'm stealing that, Steve.
All right. I'll send you a bill later.
Excellent.
No, so and then also through just texting. I like texting, and as I look at my calendar, and there's reminders for me to reach out to people, and I'll often shoot them a text and say, hey, let's catch up, or how's it going, and then regularly, almost every single day, I have several scheduled phone calls like you and I did that time,
Right.
where I'm actually connecting with somebody. I usually lock out roughly a half hour, honestly. It's almost like a phone call coffee meeting, you know, because sometimes logistically it's hard to break away and actually get a half hour or an hour for coffee. So I find it to be a lot more effective, and I could be driving, it doesn't matter, and I'll have the ability to connect with people. And so those are sort of my day-to-day things that I do just to stay on top of networking. And of course, as I'm meeting new people, as I'm reaching out to people, I'll go on LinkedIn and connect, you know, send connect requests. I'm not a big, you know, I know there's different schools of thoughts on this. I'm not a big, I don't do a custom LinkedIn request. I literally send it out generically. I find a lot of people just accept it.
What do you mean a LinkedIn request? What do you do?
A request to connect.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. You know, there's some people that do the custom one. You know, hey, I came across, it looks like we have mutual connections. I just send the generic one.
Dang, you know what? I am the worst person to send those custom ones to because I don't read them. I didn't even realize I don't read them. I go to the invitation column, I learn about them, and I automatically send, like, I want to meet everybody I connect with. And I love this because the world has become virtual, right? Oh, yeah. I love Zoom for this. I love the in-face. But sometimes you can't always do that. But yeah. So go ahead. I'm sorry. I totally slowed your roll on that one.
No, I think I was pretty much wrapped on that one. Yeah. So it's just doing things on purpose, and that's my day to day. And I think you know, again, leveraging who you've met and actually trying to continue that the relationship is really the missing link for a lot of people in networking, I believe.
You know, I want to teach everyone a trick, and you just said it, but if you have an iPhone, and I'm not an Android person, but if you have an iPhone, it's so easy when you get off the phone with Steve Spiro to just click that button and say, set a reminder to call Steve Spiro in 2 weeks. And it does it, and you're done, and you put your phone down.
Siri, yeah, absolutely.
And it's, you know, we make this so difficult and complicated, but it really is about, you know, think about any relationship with a friend or a family member. You would do the same thing in work relationships. If you really want them to nurture you, your business, I think they have to be the same way. So Let's talk about the future of networking, because we've already launched into LinkedIn. And I'm telling you, LinkedIn is kind of taken, I mean, if we look at in-person events, they're still happening, but more and more and more, it's completely online.
That's right.
It's amazing to me. So let's talk about the future of networking. If you had a crystal ball, what would you see?
Well, I think that certainly social networking through the, you know, through apps or whatnot will continue to grow. I think, though, to really stand out, it's going to have to be a combination. I think to really leverage networking properly, you know, you still need to do what I'm suggesting, which is that personal side of things. And I think to excel in the business world or whatever you're looking to accomplish, that factor is going to need to continue to grow. So the ones that actually do that, I think will do better. Yeah, I mean, who knows? I mean, who knows if it's going to be, there'll be, you know, holographic, you know, social media type of technology.
Wouldn't that be amazing? A little Steve Spiro materializes on my computer keyboard.
You know what? That would be, that's even a better way than, you know, I guess video is pretty good in terms of, this is as close to being face-to-face in person as you can possibly get. But with a video, with a hologram, I guess you get even more personal. But
my money's on teleportation.
There you go. Hey, I'm a big Star Trekky fan, so I'd love it. Beam me up, Scotty. Absolutely. Why not? You know.
Hey, I'm gonna just point out a couple of the things that my millennials tell me how it's changing today, and let's just kind of weigh in. Stop me at any point and weigh in on your thoughts.
Sure.
So. It's the first one was, it's okay to talk about work. And they're telling me old people don't do that. We talk about everything else, beat around the bush, and we don't talk about what we're passionate about. And just get to the get-in, and your passion comes out and throws itself out there and speaks volumes for what you do. I'm like, all right.
Well, can I tell you, can I weigh in on that one?
Yeah.
Here's my concern with the millennials, okay? there is such a push and emphasis and pressure for the millennials to find their passion in their job that I think in many cases it's unrealistic. And I think the challenge is us Xers or boomers, we understood it. And for me, I've always understood my passion. I do enjoy what I do. I do. Whatever I've done, I've always enjoyed it. But my passion is travel. And so I'm never going to be talking to you passionately about my line of work. I'm going to probably talk to you about travel. And I think that's a mistake. You know, it's funny. I do talk to a lot of millennials on many different ways, and and such. But when, I'm one of my favorite apps. It's a GPS. It's called Waze, right? I don't know if you
love Waze.
Love Waze, right? And when we talk about careers or opportunities or jobs, everyone wants to have this passion. But to me, a job or a career or opportunity is really your path to help you accomplish what you want. So when I go and I put in Waze, and I'm at a coffee shop here in I'm in Monroe, Connecticut. When I put in my Waze, I didn't put in happy, joyous path, passionate path. I put in Monroe, Connecticut Starbucks. And the Waze used the way to get me there. And to me, what I think is a job or an opportunity is a way to get your passion. Now, there are some people that are very passionate about what they do, and I think those are typically teachers and doctors and maybe nurses.
Or it's a Small Business USA. No.
Or exactly. Yep. And that's okay. And listen, it's okay. But here's what I believe true passion. And if you really, really, really love what you do, you'll do it for free. Like 100% for free.
True.
And I'd say most people won't. That means they like what they do. They would love, and they may even to some degree love it. But so I don't mind. I don't look at if you don't talk about work being around the bush. Maybe that just happens to be not your passion. And it's okay. Us Xers or boomers, we're allowed to talk about things that are passionate, even if it isn't our work, right? Now, maybe the millennials, they think it has to be work and has to be passionate. Okay, well, if that's it.
I want you to go back to before 30. You're not much past 30, is my guess. I don't know. I don't even know.
Well, thank you for the compliment.
But I want you to think. Chelsea Clinton said something. I don't know if you remember that millennial issue of Time magazine, but Chelsea Clinton said something in there that just moved me beyond words. She said, I don't know any generation ever met a 23-year-old who wasn't entitled, right? And I thought when I was 23, I was entitled. And when I was 23, there were two things that were super important to me, my friends and my work. And I was completely involved in both of them. And now, millennials now are in their early 30s, right? 34, I think, is the oldest millennial.
That's right.
And life is going to change and shift for them, just like it did for us, just like it did for boomers. So what applies now isn't going to apply forever. And so even I agree, this work-life integration that they're experiencing today may not be the same later, but we still have to pay attention because there's 62% of the population, which is amazing.
Yeah,
so I think it's interesting to watch as we go through this. But I would also challenge every generation. We talk a lot about the millennials, and we have Generation Z coming next. We have Generation X. There's a lot of similarity in every generation, regardless of their name. And sometimes we just have to remember what it was like to be at that point in our life, which is changing. Now, all of a sudden at 30, now you start making more money and you have more disposable income and your taste of restaurants increases, the places you go mean more, it just changes as you get older. Yeah. The other thing that was really interesting is community is most important. And so where you spend your time, and I look at YEO, what a great organization that is. What was really interesting is most everyone in our focus group went to an event that became a community. And so as this large population tries to go after, they're moving from online to in-person and looking for that entertainment factor, they're finding connectivity in this community and events, and they're creating more and more communities, which I think is really interesting. So being part of a community, whether it's a BNI or YEO, I think it's really important to pick one that you love and stick with it, because it's nurturing those relationships in one location, whether it's 20 people or 100, or it's a chamber of commerce, that really is going to help you network more effectively. People, I think, get hindsight, like, limited in their vision, and they think, if I only meet 100 people, that's only 100 people I know. If I go to 10 events and I meet 1,000 people, then there's 1,000 people I know. I'm telling you, you'd rather know 100 people better than 1,000 people less, because it's going to help your growth and fulfill you a lot more.
100%. Well, I'll weigh on that a little bit real briefly on the community. I think community is super important. And, in telling you a little bit of my story and the change that happened, it's all because I got around a group of guys, people, they weren't guys, they were just guys, they were people, but that were super just positive, success-minded, and success to these guys were not about money. It was about enhancing people's lives, making a difference in this world. Success is good relationships, good marriages, good family life. I mean, success. And that, being around that environment, I heard growing up, if you hang out with drug addicts, you're going to become one. If you lie with dogs, you're going to get fleas, right?
I love that. I love that. Talk to me about editing these relationships, because I think too many people are afraid to do that. That's a great call out. So
editing the relationship, as in, looking at who you're spending time with and figuring out.
Yeah, what do they call it? Like pruning the limbs, right?
Well, I mean, I think this is a challenge, and I think, another thing that I'm a big believer on, and I learned this, I didn't make this up, but is we are a product of our environment, right? And so, what kind of environment are we putting ourselves in? A lot of times the millennial, again, you're right, it's not about this generation, but we are programmed by media. We are programmed by sort of random things that the media just throws at us, Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat, which could be very I would say de-edifying. It doesn't build us up as people in our soul or spirit. I'm not getting religious, but just things that make you feel good. We're influenced by that, and the people we surround ourselves, it's the same thing. And I want to be very protective about the environment that I put myself in. The way I believe is we have the seed of greatness inside of us, and that seed, when you plant it in unfoiled, unfertile, not good ground, will just sit there dormant and eventually die. But if you put it in good soil and you fertilize it, and you could see that seed grow. And again, I'm not talking success financially per se, but it can manifest to that. But I'm talking about success in life. And what's the environment? What's the soil you're putting this beautiful seed that each of us have? And I think people are very random about how they live their life, and we're very much focused on what feels good versus how do we really want to be? How do we want to live our life? And that's the challenge, I think, again, with the society that's coming up, because it's so media driven. I mean, media is now in your hands. In the generation I came from, you'd have to go home and watch it. Now it's everywhere. You're sitting on a train, commuting in, you're anywhere. Even people are standing next to each other and on their phones. It's everywhere. So what's the environment, and you have influence over it, but you have to decide and understand, what do you want, and then say, okay, are these the people, are they in life where I want to be? If yes, stay with them. If not, I would change your environment.
Right. So true. I love that. And so there is proof that the language that you use every day affects your prosperity, your health, your wellness. And I think when you're not having the right kind of conversations every day, and they don't feel great, they don't nurture you, and not to get too hokey, but it is really about feeding your soul. And when you're with someone who's negative or bringing you down or whatever, it's okay to prune the bush, I guess, a little.
100%.
So I love it. So the last thing is we're moving to someone mentioned, my group, my millennial group mentioned, we're moving to a trust first environment. And it was interesting. I said, well, what do you mean by that? And they said, well, other generations, you have to earn someone's trust. Our generation, we're going to give it and it's yours to lose. And when you lose it, the ramifications are far greater because of social media and the internet. So it's best to be authentic and real and who you are. And I thought it was just kind of an interesting conversation that this group got really passionate about this conversation about trust is given and you have to earn it versus trust is earned.
Yeah, I mean, my perspective, and you know, you saw my LinkedIn, and you know, and some people choose LinkedIn, some people choose whatever social media, but I believe in that authenticity is super important, and because now with technology, who you are and what you're about is out there, or if it's not, especially the millennials, they mistrust that. They're like, wait a minute, why isn't there something about this person? So you have to be very authentic. You got to be out there, and you're right. If you don't, it's yours to lose that trust. But make sure that whatever message you're putting out is truly what and who you're about. And again, if you have nothing on yourself, it's a challenge, I think, because I think, in my opinion, there's a mistrust from millennials of what's going on with this person. You know, why can't I find anything on them online? And that's where I think the mistrust comes into play. But if you're online and what you're portraying is who you're about, yes, then it's yours to lose in terms of that trust.
If I had to read the tea leaves, and I'm going to ask you the same thing, but if I had to read the tea leaves, I believe that we're going to see an environment that personal interaction is important, whether it's in this relation in like this environment, or whether it's through meetups or meetings or in-person events. But I believe that how we nurture relationships is going to change. I think it's going to be about social positioning and making sure that you stay focused and relevant through Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat, and making sure that you continuously be a part of their lives long after that. Because I think that piece, when we think about newer generations, my daughter only communicates in Snapchat. It's ridiculous. They send these ridiculous videos to each other and they laugh their heads off and then they're gone.
Yeah.
But they nurture these relationships this way. And I think that we have to learn that there's other ways to nurture a relationship besides a phone call or a meeting, you know, to do that. And I think we have to be aware. In the future will be more awareness of all of the different tools that we use versus one.
Sure.
So Steve, I want to wrap this up because there's so many good things I took away. Like, I love be purposeful, do it on purpose, network on purpose, plan your time, follow up, build your confidence, go in prepared. And there's so many great things that are not comfortable networking that you really should do. I think we talked about a lot of great things that are coming in networking, right? And where we're going. But if you could give the business owners today that are listening to you, if you could give them 3 pieces of advice that you believe that they must do to be successful over the next year, what would those 3 pieces of advice be? I'm putting you on the spot. How about that?
Yeah, no, it's all good. It's right in my head already, because that is it's how I live. And like I started, I think it was before we got on live, I said it's in my heart, and so it's easy to talk about this stuff. I think number one, and this is what has worked for me. Number one, find a mentor. Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. I guess he agrees with it. Find a mentor in your life that is in life where you want to be, because I believe there's wisdom in multitude of counselors. You want to find somebody that's really, can really give you some really good insight. There's something that I've heard and read. There's the 4 window panes of who we are, right? The first window pane is what you know about you and what everyone knows about you, right? It's the obvious stuff, right? There's also the what you know about yourself but nobody knows about you, which is sort of those things, those personal things that only we know. There's also the what somebody knows about you but you don't know about yourself, which is your blind spots. And that's where a mentor can help. And then I think the 4th pane is the great unknown. It's what what your potential is, right? And that third pane I mentioned, that mentor, is key. Second thing I recommend is continue to grow yourself personally. Get on a personal development program. You know, Audible, I love Audible. But there's lots of things you can do. Read audios, listen. You know, there's definitely YouTube has some good video, motivational stuff. But feed your brain, edify your brain with good stuff, because there's lots of junk crap coming at us, and we need to keep, I believe, this as good. Success happens, again, when there's a positive mindset, and I've learned that definitely through reading and through my mentor. And the last thing is continue to build your network, because I believe it is, like I said before, is your net worth is in direct proportion to your network. And again, if those first two things don't happen, I think you'll have a tougher time in building that network if you don't really kind of get that foundational on, you know, the mentorship, the guidance, as well as, you know, kind of the positive mental mindset. Because, you know, we have a tendency to go negative. I heard it said recently that we're like an SUV sitting on a hill facing up, and natural tendency is to roll backwards. But we have to take action and apply a handbrake, or put it in drive and hit the gas to go to at least stay still. But if not, we tend to go backwards, and we have to take action. So to me, that's the positive mindset in terms of self-development.
I think about 5 or 6 years ago, I was with a company, and part of a test that we were doing, leading a test, that we looked at all of the executives in a Fortune 500 company and found that what was the one thing that they had in common. And the one thing that they all had in common, it wasn't degree, it wasn't what they studied, it wasn't their Wharton MBA, it was their focus on continuous improvement.
Absolutely.
I believe that with our business owners today. I can tell you the most successful ones are the ones that invest in themselves and focus on their own personal development. I love that. I think we could do a whole call just on that, Steve.
No, 100%. Absolutely.
I love those 3 things. It was such great advice. If you didn't hear it, rewind it, watch it again, and write it down, because I think you're right on. Hey, I want to end the call on, I want you to tell us the most impactful, is that a word, impactful? The most impactful networking story that you have. What is your best networking experience ever? And this is from the shy guy from the Bronx.
Oh, there's so many stories. I'm just going to throw out the one that came to mind. So I think it was in 2008. I was at a Nordstrom rack. My wife was shopping, and I happened to be doing what most guys do, and that is, why am I here? And so I think I wound up talking to a guy who was probably the same thing. Why are we here? And we started a conversation. He was a gentleman. I won't mention his name, but he was actually a GM to a restaurant locally in White Plains. We wound up staying in touch. Again, connected through the years. He wound up becoming a GM to an extremely prestigious Greenwich country club, and then moved to another country club in Greenwich, also prestigious. Over time, we wound up talking, and as different businesses that I've been involved in, we chatted about those things. But eventually, just about 6 months ago, we wound up actually doing business with. But think about it, it was from a conversation, a random conversation from 2008. And that's the power of follow up, follow through, staying in touch. And again, when I met him, there was no agenda, absolutely no agenda, but we wound up doing business together. This is one example. There's hundreds of examples of incredible relationships that I've been able to be blessed by because of just random things that have happened and just talking to people and making friends.
I love that. I have a few crazy ones myself. Thank you, Steve, so much. Before we hang up, does anybody have any questions for Steve? You can use the Q&A button on the bottom of your screen, or you can leverage the chat box. Please ask away. We always, our next, this Trump versus Clinton, we've already got a lot of people that have already registered for this event, so we're pretty excited for it next Tuesday. But we said in it, I think it says something like rotten tomatoes, like, through virtual rotten tomatoes, because it's going to be raucous, I think, but it should be a fun event.
Yeah.
All right, Steve.
I guess unless everyone's speechless,
Oh, we can have one. Hold on, please.
Okay, here we go.
Can I connect on LinkedIn with him?
Sure.
Yeah, I think that's great. How should they do that?
They can just look me up, Steve Spiro, or if they want to send me an email, they're welcome to send it at stevelspiro@gmail. I have other emails, but that's just my, go-to. It's also
You should never keep score when you're networking, but it is amazing if you just go out there with good intentions and connect. It always comes back.
It's the law of reciprocity. What you give, eventually you get back.
Or karma. Hold on, we have another question.
Okay, cool.
Thank you, Casey, author of Crawling Out.
Okay.
Welcome. We'll have to look that up. Crawling Out. It sounds great.
Crawling out. Okay. Well, I can relate to that. I certainly crawled out. Yeah, of a shell.
And I doubt that. I doubt that completely.
I wish you know me. I wish you know me then. Yeah.
Well, I'm honored to know you now, Steve. Thank you so much.
Thank you,